Joining me now from Chicago, Illinois, Executive Director of the Pro-Life Action League, Eric Scheidler. Eric, I think every once in a while there's a moment in time when we look at the pro-life movement and we can pause for a moment and realize where we are. And it's a much, much better and more pro-life position than it was 20 years ago, for example. Things are moving in the right direction, and the right direction being in the direction of life. It's not over, the fight is not over, but if we pause right now and we reflect, the trend is going in the right direction. It's not unlike the abolitionist movement of 200 years ago. And yeah, it was 200 years ago because that's when the abolitionist movement started. So this takes time, it takes decades, and it is a moment in time where you can rejoice, isn't it?
Well, I think so. We're seeing a lot of very positive developments. We've seen several states now have passed legislation that would prevent the abortion of unborn children with heartbeats, whose little tiny hearts are beating. Of course, those laws will be held up in the courts for years to come. We're seeing changes in public opinion, a tremendous surge in people interested in doing something locally about the abortion issue themselves actively, because of the Unplanned movie that impacted so many people. So we really are at a very critical moment here, but you're absolutely right that this is a long-term battle for us, and we have to stay the course. We can't expect a silver bullet, some piece of legislation, or a change from on high to change the situation for unborn children and protect them. We really all have to be vigilant and expect to fight this battle for many years to come.
And we also need to let these legislators and the governors of these states that are taking these bold moves to protect life inside the womb. We need to let them know that we have their back and that we support them. For example, Governor Kemp in Georgia. Now, Georgia adds to the growing list of these states that now have heartbeat legislation. Georgia growing on that list, along with Mississippi, Iowa, Alabama. I want to talk about Alabama in just a moment. But this national conversation that you alluded to, and that these pieces of legislation are bringing up, is a national conversation about heartbeats, right? And so what is more fundamental about life than measuring a living being's heartbeat? And so it's a wonderful conversation to have.
That's right. These, as I mentioned, these bills will be stopped by the courts. It will take an overturning of Roe versus Wade to actually allow any of this legislation to be enforced in states like Georgia or Ohio or elsewhere. But along the way, we're having an important conversation. We're educating our fellow Americans. Many Americans don't realize that the unborn child's heartbeat can be detected as early as 18 days. Yeah. So very early in pregnancy, that tiny little heart begins to beat. So it's a wonderful educational opportunity, which is always a victory for us. Every time we can share the truth,
right,
we win.
This is a good trend, right? But there's also a trend in the opposite direction among the blue states. And I think that you are at ground zero of that in Illinois. And when you consider Illinois and Missouri butting up against each other, literally and figuratively from a political sense, I know that there's been a billboard that was erected for folks that are leaving Missouri and heading into Illinois. And the billboard essentially says, hey, welcome to Illinois, where you can have an unfettered abortion. So this is ground zero, really, and a great example of the dichotomy that's now existing between red states and blue states. These would be pro-life states and pro-abortion at any time, for any reason, at any term states.
It's really shocking. The legislature of Vermont has just passed a constitutional amendment that would enshrine abortion. They're calling it reproductive autonomy. I mean, if you think about that for a minute, it makes no sense. No one can choose to have a child all by themselves. It always takes at least two people. But we're seeing this real split where the blue states are becoming more and more pro-abortion, and then the red states are becoming more and more pro-life. We haven't seen anything like this sort of coming apart at the seams since the battle over slavery in the 19th century that you mentioned earlier.
And Alabama, I want to get back to Alabama. They've passed an abortion law that essentially says to doctors, hey, if you perform an abortion and you're tried and convicted, you're going to face jail time. Now, some people would look at that and they would say that's extreme. Well, I would say in response to that, yes, murder is extreme, and we tend to have, as a society, an extreme response to people who commit extreme acts. But the important thing is what you alluded to a couple minutes ago. A law like this is being proffered for a reason. Yes, it's to protect life in the womb, but it's also meant as one of the vehicles to get to the Supreme Court to try and dismantle Roe versus Wade, right?
That's right. And again, it's going to be a long-term battle, but that battle includes some kind of a case that will go up before the court and give them the logic that they need, if we have the justices with us, to overturn that 1973 ruling and allow the states to once again protect the lives of unborn children. And it's important along the way that we make it clear what we mean. And laws like that in Alabama are helpful because they show that the pro-life movement is not trying to go after women. We know that this is not a non-starter. And this has never been the approach of laws that protect unborn children. It's to go after the doctors who actually perform the abortions.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube. And call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.